Good evening, good evening, good evening. And I want to welcome you to the show, Men of Standards. This is a show talking about men issues, helping men face life, helping men find themselves, helping men to be the kings that God made them. This is the month of June, which is Father's Day is coming up. So all month long we will talk about fathers. And today's topic will be 5 ways to be a godly dad. Sometimes it's hard when you grow up without a father. Sometimes we look toward other sources to become that father. But I assure you, if you pick up that Bible, it will teach you God's way of being a godly father. Being a parent is not easy. In these days and time, being a man isn't easy. But I assure you, once you get Christ in your heart, things will be easier. They won't stop, but they will become easier for you to deal with. And that's what it's all about, being a king, being someone that people look up to. And that's one of the characteristics of a father. You have to show yourself to be worthy of that role. So today's topic is 5 ways to be a godly dad. Number 1, a godly father teaches his children, be it a boy, be it a girl. You teach them right from wrong. You teach them their manners. You teach them. The male, the man, is the teacher of the family. He teaches his son how to brush his hair. Some fathers even teach him how to box, how to play cards, how to ride a bicycle. And this is what we have to start teaching our young kids, not social media. Social media at times will teach children the wrong thing. And that's when we as parents, especially fathers, have to take over and be that beacon of light for not only for his children, but his family and sometimes his neighborhood. In Proverbs 22:6, it says, train up a child in the way he shall go, he shall not depart. Yes, it's hard in these days and time being a parent because they always used to say, the terrible twos, you know, 2 year olds, they just everywhere. And then there's the age of being your children become a teenager, when they are so defined and don't want to do as you ask them to do, it's not easy, but it will be gets easier in time, because sooner or later that child is going to say, yeah, my father, he warned me about this, he told me about this. I know growing up as a child myself, as a young man, I was just like any and everybody else growing up. They you get to be a teenager, you think you know everything and really don't know anything. My grandparents raised me, and yes, I was defiant. Yes, I didn't want to listen, but as I became a man, as I went off to college, joined the army, I found their teaching coming back to me, and I used to say, yeah, I remember when my grandfather said this to me. I remember when he used to take me, sit me down, and say, this is life. This is what this is all about. It's hard sometimes when you don't know. But one of the things about it, when you do know, it's totally different. I know a lot of young men out there practically raise themselves because the male is not around, and that's why they go to, join gangs and do other things to get that fatherly advice. But God's word, if you teach your child God's word, even though it seems sometimes that he's not listening or she's not listening, he's going to remember. When times get hard in that child's life, he's going to remember what my parents told me, what my father told me. And he's going to start acting like that, start being like that. Number two, a godly father is an example. You have to be an example as a man. And it goes back to what I was saying before. You have to lead by example. If you want your children to be upright, stand up adults, they're going to look at you. They're going to listen to you. It may not seem that way, but they do. They look at everything you say, everything you do. They're looking at you. They're watching you. And if you're that type of person that you say something, then you do the opposite, they're going to remember that opposite that you just did, not what you said, told them to do. In other words, the old cliche, my grandparents used to say, do as I say, not as I do. But they taught me, no, do as I say. Because what they were saying was exactly what they were doing. They weren't doing the opposite. At times I decided to do the opposite, but they stopped and said, hey, this is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. I'm going to show you the right way. the right way to do this, not the wrong. And that's one of the things that a lot of us don't understand. We get frustrated, we get upset, oh, that child's not listening to me. So what are you doing wrong? Are you showing him, telling him one thing and showing him something else? That has a lot to do with it. A lot. Something little as that. Because see, we all have to lead by example. And leading by example sometimes means that you may have to change. You wouldn't believe the things that you could even learn from your own children. You can learn it. Even as a godly man, you can still learn. No matter how old you are, know that you can learn. You can teach. One thing I've always said is that always be willing to learn something new each and every day. And what I mean by that is you pick up that Bible, you read it, then you try to apply it. Then when you apply it, you teach it to your children. What you just learned from that book. Now let's teach it to your children. Let's teach it so they will understand. And one thing about being a godly man, don't get frustrated with your children if they don't get it the first time. Because if you think back when you were that age, you probably was doing the self same thing they do to you. You didn't want to listen. You didn't want to follow directions. You was doing the self same thing. So sometimes we as men have to look at it from all angles, all perspectives, you know, almost have to be that other individual. Be that person that says, okay, they're not getting it. What am I doing wrong? How can I rethink this so they can understand? Yeah, they may be defiant, but the more persistent you are in a nice way, they're going to catch it. Sometimes we as parents, we demand. I think that's one of the worst things a parent, especially a man, can do is demand anything. Especially if I'm talking about your children now. Okay. I don't demand anything from my kids. I try to teach them. I try to show them. And yes, sometimes, I get frustrated. I get that downright saying, you know what? Why am I doing this? They're not getting it. But guess what? They are getting it. Sometimes they have a spirit where I don't want my dad to know that I'm listening. I want to be defined. When I was in seminary, my teacher told me a story about his son. He brought his son up, had him read Bible verses from the age of, really, I think he said it was 5 all the way up to he was 14 or 15. And, he got defined. He didn't want to read no more, didn't want to do anything anymore. He graduated from high school within the service and got hurt. Got hurt. And he said that they didn't think that he was going to make it. When he came back, I forgot exactly where he was, but he said that he was paralyzed from the neck down. Couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And he got a little despaired and, upset, getting ready to go into a depression. And, the mother and father, left and they came back. And all those Bible verses that the father went over with him as a child, he was laying in that bed and he was saying each and every one of them. And today, for what I understand, he's walking just like nothing has happened. So don't think that that child is letting what you're saying or what you're teaching him go in one end out the other. It's not. It's not. It may seem like that, but it's not. To me, it's a process, even with us, because we went through it. We were hard headed at one time, and God loved us anyway. And that's one thing about being a godly father is you're going to get frustrated. They're not going to listen to you, but you keep on praying, and your children will come around. It's amazing how they're going to come around, but you don't stop teaching. A godly dad never stops teaching. He never gives up, because greater is the one that's in him than of this world. Greater is him. Greater. So don't get discouraged. Don't. Number 3, don't ever, don't ever think that a godly father doesn't discipline his children. Don't do that. He must discipline his children. It's in Proverbs 3:12. It's in Proverbs 19:18. It's even in Hebrews 12:11. It's even in that. You have to discipline. Spare the rod and spoil the child. Spare the rod, spoil the child. I'm saying to you that don't get upset when you have to. Don't. Because you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to discipline your child. But the thing about it, there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. Excuse me.